we have to ask our manager. If he says you can go, then you can go. Okay. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, salatu wassalamu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. How many brothers and sisters were here with us for Jummah yesterday? So we kind of prefaced the story of Abdullah ibn Mubarak by talking about the father of Abdullah ibn Mubarak, which I hope you all still remember, that Mubarak, his father, was a slave who had been bought by a merchant, a wealthy man who was also a judge, and he basically put Mubarak to work in his garden of grapes. And after some time passed, the owner, whose name was Nuh ibn Maryam, he came and he sat in the garden and he told his servant Mubarak that go and get me some grapes. Mubarak brought him some grapes, but the grapes were sour. So he told him 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and then he got upset with him. He said, hey, how come you don't know, the difference between sweet grapes and sour grapes? So Mubarak said, because you did not permit me to eat from your grapes, that's why I did not eat from your grapes. I don't know where the sour ones are, where the sweet ones are. You told me to guard the garden, and I'm guarding the garden. You did not tell me to taste the grapes of the garden. So Nuh ibn Maryam was very pleasantly surprised by the honesty, by the truthfulness of this man. And he sought advice from him about marrying his daughter. And again, Mubarak gave him advice that, look, the Prophet ﷺ said that women are married for 4 things, which is lineage, beauty, wealth, and deen. And our Prophet ﷺ told us to marry for deen. The Jews used to marry for wealth. The Christians used to marry for beauty, and the mushrikeen before Islam, the Meccans before Islam, used to marry for lineage. So choose whichever one you like, and you shall be with those whom you follow. So Nuh ibn Maryam, he said, okay, this is good advice, and he started searching for the most pious person he could find. And he came to realize that the most pious person in his town is none other than his servant Mubarak. So he actually married his daughter to Mubarak, and Mubarak and the daughter, whose name in some of the books is written as Hind. They were married, and they had a son by the name of Abdullah. And this is the story of Abdullah ibn Mubarak that we're going to talk about today. So Abdullah ibn Mubarak is a name which is a big name in the history of Islam. And now, you may not understand, what makes a person a big scholar, right? So what you see is that your normal masajid imams generally tend to be generalists, which means that they know a little bit about a lot of things. And they can speak well, they can express those ideas well, and people say, oh, this is a very good imam. But few out of these imams, they tend to have some real specialty where they know a lot of general stuff, but then there's one topic where they're really good at, right? Maybe they are specialists in hadith, or maybe they are specialists in fiqh and they can give fatwa, or maybe they are specialists in the tafsir of the Quran. Those people are the ones that automatically, as soon as people realize that yes, he knows a lot of general stuff, but in this particular thing, he's really, really good. So you start to hear their name in their whole city and in their state, where people start to say, if you want to learn about such and such topic, go to such and such person. So you get a few out of many to be like that. Then out of those few, there are probably a handful in each generation, okay, if that, who are a specialist in many things. Like, meaning they are the top of the line in fiqh, they are the top of the line in hadith, jazakallah khair, top of the line in tafsir, top of the line in zuhud, and they have multiple specialties. And these are basically the ones that you remember over generations. You say that, the greatest scholar of the past generation was so and so, and you would find from him works and contributions in every science. Abdullah ibn Mubarak was that person. Abdullah ibn Mubarak was that person, that he wasn't someone who knew a lot of things about everything, but just a little bit. And he wasn't someone who had a very good specialty in one thing, but he was someone who had a specialty in so many things that you will see as we continue his story, is that many people that he went to learn from, they taught him, and then they said, now you need to teach us. So his teachers are also his students. His teachers are also his students. So Abdullah ibn Mubarak, rahimahullah, he was born in a place called Marv, or some have said Marwa, in a place called Khurasan, which is in the Afghanistan, Iran region. And this is the same place where other luminaries like Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Sufyan al-Thawri, and Ishaq ibn Rahawayh have come out from as well. We have talked about the father and mother of Abdullah ibn Mubarak. And most books of history, they mention that Abdullah ibn Mubarak was born 118 after Hijri. 118 after Hijri. He tells himself, they asked him that, what year were you born in? He said that people in my time did not remember what year they were born in. So this concept of your birthdays was actually something which kind of the West pushed into the Eastern Muslim world, right? Muslims didn't really care much about, like, every single person here that has a grandfather that was born, I would say, before 1940, if you ask them, do you remember the day, the month, and the year that you were born? Most of them, they don't remember. Okay? Whenever they used to travel outside and they had to make a document, they would just guess the year and they would put it right then and there, right? They'd say, okay, January 1st. That's what January 1st is. A lot of people have this. Okay, just put that. So this is not something that, a lot of Muslims used to do. So he didn't know, but he said that I remember as a child, people wearing black. And wearing black in this time was a sign of protest against the Umayyad government. And wherever the Abbasids were basically winning over the crowds to basically take over the government from the Umayyads, the people used to wear black in support, or sometimes they were forced to wear black to show that they have support. So he says that as a child, I remember people wearing black. Okay, so we would say that perhaps, Umayyad Abbasid dynasty was firmly established in 132, and it is said that he was born in 118, so he's about 14 years old at this time. So he says that I can remember as a young child people wearing black. Now, as every great scholar has done, where do you think that Abdullah ibn Mubarak studied first? He went straight to Mecca and Medina and started studying there? Where did he study first? He studied in his local town. Okay? Anyone who wants to seriously study, if you do not take advantage of your local resources first, and you just want to go to a prestigious university and then you're going to study Islam, they say that this is a sign of a person whose intention is not sincere. Okay, meaning that he wants the prestige next to his name, but he doesn't want to study where it's not prestigious to study, but the knowledge is still the same, right? You have somebody who graduated from here, who graduated from there, they're teaching in their local masajid. So he studies locally first, and immediately as a child, he is recognized as a person, as a child with great intellect and powerful memory. One of his companions, he said that we were young boys at school when Ibn al-Mubarak and I passed by a man giving a khutbah. He gave a long khutbah, and when we dispersed, Ibn al-Mubarak said to me, I memorized it. So a man overheard him. He said, what are you talking about? You memorized it. Say it back to me if you really did. So he repeated all of it to him, and indeed he had memorized the entire khutbah just while he was passing by. And it's like, oh, let's see what he's saying. And just like that, he memorized it. His interest in reading as a young child occupied him, and it basically diverted him from his duties in helping his father in trade. So his father, remember that when Mubarak was married to the daughter of Nuh ibn Maryam, Nuh ibn Maryam gave him a lot of wealth. So he upgraded him from a servant. So now Mubarak started to trade as a merchant. And of course, every person, they love free labor, right? And you want to teach your kids to kind of take over the business. So he would want his son to take over, but Abdullah ibn Mubarak was busy reading. And one of his companions, he says that I heard Ibn al-Mubarak say that one day my father said to me that if I find your books, I will burn them all. Okay, meaning because he was saying that you're reading so much, you're not helping me, I need your help. So Abdullah ibn Mubarak said that I said to him, and what harm will that do to me when it is all in my heart? I have memorized my books. You can burn them if you like. So then at the age of 23, he travels out of Marv. And perhaps because usually when you are a keen student, very quickly you run out of local resources and you say, you know what, if I need to continue to the next level, I need to go and chase knowledge elsewhere. And it is also said by some in some of the books that while he was a young man, he went off the path a little bit, and he was influenced by the youth culture and took to wasteful pastimes, but that didn't last very long. And later on, people asked him that, why did you leave Merv? Why did you leave your hometown? He said that I would be in Merv, and there wouldn't be any issue except that the people would come to me, and there wouldn't be a masala except that they would say, ask Ibn al-Mubarak. So at the age of 23, anybody that comes with a question to any imams, they say, you know what, I don't know the answer, go ask Ibn al-Mubarak. And he is 23 years old at this time. And he says, now I'm here, safe from all that. So he wanted to escape the attention, right? So he left Merv and he basically went to a place where there were many greater scholars, where he can be kind of, a small fish in a big pond and just focus on learning more and improving himself. So Abdullah ibn Mubarak, as a student of knowledge, we see from his life story that he traveled far and wide. They said that he traveled a quarter of the earth that was known at the time, a quarter of the earth. Imam al-Dhahabi, he says, Imam al-Dhahabi described him as as-safar, or the traveler, the constant traveler. This was Abdullah ibn Mubarak. He covered a quarter of the earth by traveling in search of hadith. He left out neither Yemen nor Egypt, neither Sham nor the peninsula, neither Basra nor Kufa. This is one of his companions saying. And he said, so he heard a statement. He heard a statement by Hassan al-Basri, who said that do not purchase the love of 1,000 men with the anger of one. Okay? What does that mean? Do not purchase the love of 1,000 men for the anger of one. The one is Allah, right? It says, don't try to purchase the pleasure, the love of 1,000 men by angering Allah. And you know what? If you look at the social media influencers these days, if you look at YouTubers, right? They will basically drop to any level in order to get attention, subscribers, views, likes, and whatnot, right? They'll do like crazy stuff. And they will, I don't want to mention any episodes, but basically there are things like that where they're trying to please the people while doing things which they themselves are not pleased with, let alone Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being pleased with them. So Ibn al-Mubarak came to a man whose name is Harun while on a saddle of his camel and asked about this statement. So I told him that yes, Hassan al-Basri said this. So Ibn al-Mubarak said, I have not saddled or prepared to come from Marv except the sake of this narration. Okay? Now what's strange about this is that this narration is not reported to be a word of the statement of the Prophet ﷺ. This is a statement of Hassan al-Basri. But he wanted to authenticate knowledge. So if he's treating statements of other scholars like this, can you imagine his level of verification for the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ? Right? So the people once rebuked him for traveling so much. And they said, why you just, every time we see you, sometimes you're here, sometimes you're there, you need to sit down and relax and do something. And they said that until when will you seek to hear knowledge? Until when will you keep doing this, going far places to get a little bit of knowledge? He said, until death. Until death. And he said that I took knowledge from 4,000 scholars. I took knowledge from 4,000 scholars and I narrated from 1,000 of them. Okay, what does that mean? What do you think? Everything that you learn is not worthy of being passed down, right? So he says, I learned from 4,000 scholars, but if he found them to be, or the chain had a problem, or the people were not of good character, or there was a lot of heretics, and we'll see a story of that he went to study from a man, and he said, narrate from me hadith. So he narrated from him hadith, and then he spoke ill about Ali radiallahu an. He spoke ill about Ali radiallahu an. So Abdullah ibn Mubarak, he got up in front of him, and everything that he had written down on paper, he ripped it in pieces, threw it, and he walked away from there. He said, I don't need anything from you. Right? So he basically understood that if people have a corrupt ideology, if they have a corrupt aqidah, if they have corrupt misguidance and bid'ah in their thought process, then these are not people that are worth learning from. And if I have learned from them, at least I'm not going to pass it on to other people if there's no good in that. He also had a principle that he would take wisdom from wherever it came from. So one day, Al-Munawi mentions an account of when Ibn Mubarak's son died. So his son died, and a Majusi came to pay his condolences, saying that the intelligent one must do today what the ignorant one will do after a week has passed. Okay, what is it talking about? The intelligent one must do today what the ignorant one will do after a week has passed. So if a calamity strikes you, the intelligent one is patient at the first strike of the calamity. The ignorant one first says bad stuff, questions the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, does not control his tongue, and after a week later, what does he say? I'm going to be patient. Because he has no choice but to be patient, right? But the intelligent one must do today what the ignorant one will do a week from today. So Ibn al-Mubarak said to those around him, he said, write this down. Write this down. This is a wise statement. Imam al-Dhahabi mentions that I asked Ibn al-Mubarak about the writing down of knowledge in books. So this is a unique thing about Abdullah ibn Mubarak, is that he used to, although he had very good memory, but he used to write down, right? So in our terminology, he used to take a lot of notes. So they asked him that, why you take notes? Because remember, the early Islam, a lot of knowledge was primarily being transmitted from mouth to mouth, okay? So people are memorizing from their teachers. They're not doing a lot of writing yet. That happens during the Abbasid period, but he is right in the beginning of the Abbasid period. So they said that, why you write so much when other people focus on memorizing and narrating? So he said, were it not for books, we would never have been able to memorize. Meaning he's saying that this actually helps us. This is a tool to help us memorize better. And he would say that the stain of ink on clothes is a trademark of scholars. So he's always writing, and his clothes get stained by inks. And he said this is a trademark of scholars, and that's what we want to be. Now, we look at some episodes of the respect that Abdullah ibn Mubarak has for his teachers. He was once asked about an issue in the presence of Sufyan ibn Uyayna. So he said, we have been prohibited from speaking in the presence of our seniors. So when his teachers are present, he says, you know what, I'm not going to talk. Our teacher is there, he is going to talk. One of his teachers, Isa ibn Yunus, said, Ibn al-Mubarak and I were once in the land of the Romans. Due to the excessive service Ibn al-Mubarak paid to me, I became shy. Okay? So Abdullah ibn Mubarak is traveling with one of his teachers. And he's saying that Abdullah ibn Mubarak is taking care of me so much that I became embarrassed. Right? He's doing everything for me. serving me food, setting my bed for me, holding my shoes when I go to the, make wudu. He's doing like small little things for me, to the point that I started to become shy and embarrassed that, what is this man doing for me? So he would hold on to my riding animal, and when we settled, he would bring the dish, he would bring the food with dates and fat and feed me mouthfuls. So he's feeding him with his hand, Abdullah ibn Mubarak. And all of this while asking me about hadith and in turn writing them down. Right? So he's taking care of his teacher, really serving him and saying, can you tell me another hadith? And he quickly writes it down, takes care of him, serves him, tell me another hadith, tell me another hadith. So he's writing it down. So I said to him, so his teacher says, I said to him, O Shaykh, is it not time that you are tired of this? He said to me, who can grow tired of this knowledge? Right? Meaning he's saying that you have done enough for me. Don't you need to take a break? He said, who can get tired and need a break from taking knowledge? Abdullah ibn Mubarak used to stay in his house a lot. Okay, so he used to stay in his house a lot. And the people said to him, don't you feel lonely? Like people used to come out and hang out with friends and family and whatnot. But Abdullah ibn Mubarak spends a lot of time home alone. So they said, don't you feel lonely? He said, how can I feel lonely when I'm with the Prophet and his companions? And in another narration, he said, am I on my own? No. Rather, I am with the prophets, the righteous, the wise ones, and the prophets and his companions. What is he talking about? Ilm, right? He's reading books and he's reading about the Prophet and the companions. So he said, I'm not alone, I am with them. I don't know if you ever heard about this book called, no, I'm sorry, it's not a book. I think it is a book where this one person, he basically had a council of wise men from history. So he basically has an imagination that all the smart intellectuals of history are on one dinner table, and he sits them down and he asks them questions, right? And basically Aristotle is there, and Abraham Lincoln is there, and Al-Farabi is there, and so is there. Basically all throughout, like from centuries ago, they're all on his dinner table, and he asks them, what do you think about this matter? And he tries to think that, okay, from his thinking, what his answer would be. So Abdullah ibn Mubarak, when he's at home, he imagines himself that the Prophet is with me, the companions are with me, I'm reading their books, and I'm trying to learn what they would say, how they would handle the matters. Now, Abdullah ibn Mubarak was a great merchant as well. So although he was busy studying, but he did pick up the trade from his father. And it was said that he learned business and trade primarily from his father, who had established in the field. And he also learned it from one of his teachers, whose name was Abu Hanifa. Any of you ever heard about Abu Hanifa? So Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, was a great merchant as well, right? So Abdullah ibn Mubarak, he learned Quran and Hadith from him, he learned fiqh from him, and he also learned trade from him. And Abdullah ibn Mubarak had a very good reason for wanting to be wealthy. He had a very good reason for wanting to be wealthy, and he was wealthy. He was very wealthy. He used money to finance knowledge. He used money, so you see, he's traveling all over the world. And if you're traveling all over the world, what do you need? You need a lot of money. So he was using his trade, his business, and he was leveraging that to get and acquire more knowledge. Not only that, he said that I acquire knowledge, I acquire wealth, and I deal in trade in order to save my face. In order to save my face. Yani, he considered, and many scholars of the past, they used to consider it to be an insult for a scholar to be at the door of the sultan, to be at the door of the rulers. They wanted to be far away from that, right? And his teacher, of course, Imam Abu Hanifa, and inshallah one day we'll talk about him. You know that Imam Abu Hanifa was whipped. He was whipped and punished severely. And you know why he was punished? Because the ruler said, I want you to be a judge. So Imam Abu Hanifa said that I am not knowledgeable enough to be a judge. Okay? Now what Imam Abu Hanifa knew is that this ruler was a ruler that, of course, rulers, the best of rulers have a lot of corruption because they're just dealing at such a large scale, right? So the scholars that wanted to protect their integrity, they wanted to have nothing to do with the rulers. No matter how good they were, how bad they were, they just wanted to stay away from them. So Imam Abu Hanifa knew that if he accepted a position of power as a judge from the ruler, then he would automatically be considered as a scholar of the sultan. And he did not want to be. And he said that I am not qualified to be a judge. I am not qualified to be a judge. They said, no, you are qualified. You lie. He said, if I lie, I shouldn't be a judge. Okay? So either you accept it as truth that I'm not qualified, or if you say that it's a lie, then I'm a liar and you should not appoint a liar to be a judge. So they whipped him, but he refused to become a judge. So Abdullah Ibn Mubarak learned from that. But what Abdullah Ibn Mubarak did is that he set up himself from the trade and trade merchandise such that he was self-sufficient and he did not need anything from the ruler. In fact, he did many great things for others due to his wealth. So he would also annually fund and sponsor his students and others to make Hajj. So his students, his companions, people in his circle of knowledge, what does he do with them? He said that when the time for Hajj came, the companions of Ibn al-Mubarak from Merv would gather around him and say, let us accompany you, let us go to Hajj with you. He would then say, okay, bring the money. Okay, if you want to go to Hajj with me, bring the money. So they would go and they would bring the money, and he would take it all and he would put it in a box and he would lock it in a box that is secure. Then he would go out with them from Merv to Baghdad, and he would not cease spending on them and giving them the best of foods and sweet dishes. Then they would leave Baghdad with the best of clothes and appearances until they would reach the city of the Prophet ﷺ, where he would say to each of them, what have your children asked that you purchase from them from the beauties of Medina? So they would say, my kids want this, and my kids want that, and my kids want that. So he would go and he would purchase all of those things for them. Then they would go to Mecca, and again, after they were done with their rituals, he would say, what have your kids said that they want from the beauties of Mecca? So they would say, my kids want this and my kids want that from Mecca. So he would go and he would buy all of that for them. Then they would leave. Basically, he would buy all of that. Then they would leave Mecca, and he never stopped spending on them until they reached Marv, where he would decorate their homes and doors. So he's still not done yet. He's decorating their homes and doors. That, people who came back from Hajj, back in the days, they used to hang a certain type of decoration outside their house, so the whole village would know that these people went to Hajj. So people would come and they would greet them in their houses. Just like, alhamdulillah, we did the Welcome Back Hujjaj program, so that the people could know who were the fortunate ones this year. So they used to basically do this. So he would decorate their homes and doors. After 3 days, he would hold a feast for them, call them back for a feast, and clothe them until they ate and became delighted. Then he would call for the box. He would call for the box that he had taken their money and put it in, and he would come and he would open it. He's like, here's your money, here's your money, here's your money. So return all of their money to them. And subhanAllah, this is what he's doing is that he's spending on people who are grateful. Yani, they are not freeloaders, right? If he could say, okay, I will take you, and you know that the people that you take on for free, they are the ones who give you the hardest time sometimes. So he says, bring your money so that they have some skin in the game. But he keeps their money on the side, and then after he spends on them and everything, at the end of it, he gives them their money back. He gives them their money back. It is reported that every year he would spend 100,000 dirhams on the poor and the needy. 100,000 dirhams on the poor and the needy. And it is said that at one point his capital reached 400,000 dirhams. Okay? Now, just estimate 400,000 dirhams about 1,200 years ago. What is the value of that in today's wealth? Basically, maybe like, $70, $100 million of capital that he has, and he's spending it in, a lot of his spending is on people who are teachers and who are students, right? He has this love for knowledge. He allocated a man, so he hires a man, and the job of this man is to give people money from the wealth of Ibn Mubarak. So anyone that comes and he says, hey, I need some money, he says, okay, go to him. So that man basically collects, you could say, their application. And then he comes and he basically says, okay, we have 7 requests. This one has this one has this. Because, of course, you don't have time to deal with everybody. He says, go deal with him. He will come to me. So he came to him. He told him everything. And then he would say, okay, go give it to him, give this to him. So he would approve them. So one of these men that came to them, he said that I need 700 dirhams. I need 700 dirhams. So the wakil, his employee, sent a letter to Ibn Mubarak that there's a man and he's asking for 700. So Ibn Mubarak wrote back, and instead of writing 700, he wrote an extra 0. He wrote, give him 7,000. Give him 7,000. Or some form, he made a mistake where 700 became 7,000. So the wakil realized that this must be a mistake, so he sent a letter back. He said that if we give him 7,000, we're going to run out. We're going to run out. And the income is coming to an end. So he wrote back, he said, if the income is coming to an end, then life is also coming to an end. Give him what my pen has written by accident. Okay? What my pen has written by accident, just give him 7,000 if that's what my pen wrote. Now, there's a famous story of Abdullah Ibn Mubarak that one day he entered Kufa and he saw a young woman plucking a dead duck. She found a dead duck in the street somewhere in the dumpster, and she was basically removing the meat from it. So, since it is impermissible to eat dead meat, he asked her if this was sacrificed. She replied, it was not. So he said, why are you eating this? Why are you plucking it? She said that so that my family and I can eat it. So he told her that, look, this is haram. You're not allowed to eat it. So she said, go away. Just don't bother me. So in another narration, she said that my brother and I only have one piece of clothing, and we have no food except what we find in the dumps. And carrion, meaning dead meat, has become permissible for us to consume for a number of days now due to extreme poverty. Right? We have nothing to eat. We are at a point where dead meat has become halal for us. Our father was a rich man, but his wealth was taken from him forcefully, and he was killed. So they are basically, suffering through this. So he asked about her family's whereabouts, and she informed him. So he hired a man to take him there, and when he found the house, he released his riding animal and gave it to the household along with all the goods that were on it. So his animal, all the goods on it, he said, this is all yours. And he handed over most of the money he had to the young woman, keeping only what was sufficient for him to return back to his homeland of Marv. He gave his provisions away, and he said that this is better for us than a Hajj this year. So this year, he was planning to go to Hajj with this money. So this is all the money that he had at this point, and he gave it all, and he said that I have already made Hajj, and this is a Nafal Hajj, but this is better for us than a Nafal Hajj. So, when his companions returned from Hajj that year, they came to congratulate him on fulfilling his Hajj. So he said, I did not go to Hajj this year. One of them said, Subhanallah, did I not leave my possessions with you while we were at Mina and on our way to Arafat? Another one said, likewise, didn't you buy things for me in Hajj? And he turned to them saying that I don't know what you're talking about. As for myself, I did not go for Hajj this year. Later that night, he had a dream wherein a voice called out to him saying, rejoice, O Abdullah, Allah has accepted your act of charity, and He sent an angel in your place to make Hajj on your behalf. And the people had seen him making Hajj and interacting with him, but it was an angel. Now, Abdullah Ibn Mubarak, one of his most famous achievements is with regards to hadith, his khidmah for the work of hadith, that he was called Amir al-Mu'mineen fil hadith. And his status as a hadith narrator reached such heights that some of the scholars, they said that if anyone says anything bad about Abdullah ibn Mubarak, we will not take hadith from him. Meaning, they said that he's such a solid source that if somebody is criticizing Abdullah ibn Mubarak, that means that this person is not from the people of Sunnah. And that's why he must be criticizing him. So anyone who criticizes Abdullah ibn Mubarak, that don't take his narration, don't take the narration from that man himself. Abdurrahman al-Mahdi, a teacher of Ibn Mubarak and a renowned muhaddith, said that the imams of the hadith are four: Sufyan al-Thawri, Malik ibn Anas, Hammad ibn Zayd, and Ibn al-Mubarak. And who is saying this? This is a teacher of Ibn al-Mubarak. This is a teacher of Ibn al-Mubarak. He said these are the imams of hadith. And he used to say Ibn al-Mubarak was more knowledgeable than Sufyan al-Thawri. This was despite al-Thawri being the teacher of Ibn al-Mubarak. This is the thing we talked about, right? That he was such a sharp man that his teachers used to become his students. His teachers used to become his students. And the fact that he was younger did not remove from him the authority in hadith. So he is younger than his teachers, but they want to come and learn from him. And both the young and the old would come to learn from him and narrate hadith from him. Abu Ishaq al-Fazari used to sit in front of Ibn al-Mubarak and ask him, despite the fact that he was older than him by 20 years. Okay, a 20 years older man and scholar is asking Ibn al-Mubarak and asking him to narrate hadith, for knowledge knows no age boundary. And it is the case that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the ilm to whomever He wishes and takes it away from whomever He wishes. And Harun al-Rashid, the Khalifa, the Abbasid Khalifa, who was also a good man, one day a heretic, a mubtadi', innovator person was basically captured and he was to be executed. So as the punishment of execution was about to be carried out, the man said to Harun al-Rashid that, "Why are you killing me?" He said, "Because you are a heretic and you have done a lot of damage to Islam." So he said that, "What about the 1,000 false ahadith that I've already dispersed among the ummah? How are you going to stop that?" So he made up 1,000 fake ahadith. So Harun al-Rashid said, "You don't worry about that. I have people like Abu Ishaq al-Fazari and Ibn al-Mubarak to sift through them. They will be able to pick them out and they will basically purify the hadith tradition." Among the teachers of Ibn al-Mubarak are people like Imam Abu Hanifa, the two Hammads, Hammad ibn Zayd and Hammad ibn Salama. And if you know Hammad is also one of the teachers of Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah. Sufyan ibn Uyayna, Ibn Jurayh, Sufyan al-Thawri, Shu'ba, al-A'mash, Yahya ibn Sa'id. And again, these are big names. Ismail ibn Ayyash, Hisham ibn Urwa, and Malik ibn Anas, Imam Malik, Layth ibn Sa'ad, Ma'mar, Zakaria ibn Ishaq, and many others. And one of his companions, again, Nawfal, he said, "I saw Ibn al-Mubarak in my dream, so I said to him, 'What did Allah do to you?'" So after his death, he sees him in a dream. He says, "What did Allah do to you?" He said, He has forgiven me due to my journeys in search of hadith. And he said, "Upon you," so even in hadith, in that dream, Ibn al-Mubarak advises him, "Upon you is to adhere to the Quran, upon you is to adhere to the Quran." Yani, follow the truth, follow the Islam, and don't fall into misguidance of any type. He was also, so a lot of people don't understand the difference between a muhaddith and a faqih. Okay? A muhaddith, a scholar of hadith, is someone who specializes in narrating a hadith. However, the narrators of hadith, they are not necessarily experts in figuring out modern day problems, the solution to modern day problems. For that, you need a mind which is brilliant in fiqh. And they are called fuqaha, right? So Imam Abu Hanifa, he is not a muhaddith, he is a faqih, right? Imam Malik is a muhaddith and a faqih. Imam Shafi'i is also a muhaddith and a faqih. Imam Ahmad is a great muhaddith and a faqih as well. And now you might say, well, why are you putting down Imam Abu Hanifa? Imam Abu Hanifa had the greatest muhaddithin as his students. He had the greatest muhaddithin as his students, and sometimes he would say that a masala comes to us, and I don't know the answer to it, so they would put it in the circle of students. These students are also scholars. So you'd say, what do you all say about this? So the hadith scholars, they narrate a hadith related to that subject. And then Imam Abu Hanifa would say that from hearing the hadith, I figured out the solution to this problem. So he was a brilliant mind in solving problems. So one day, Abdullah Ibn Mubarak visits Imam Malik. And some issue came up. And Imam Malik said, what do you think about this, Ibn Mubarak? And Abdullah Ibn Mubarak, he spoke about it. And then he finished. He got up and he left. And he said, and the person who's watching this, he said, I could see on the face of Imam Malik how impressed he was by the amazing intelligence and intellect of Abdullah ibn Mubarak. And this is something that, another one of the great scholars, Ibn Taymiyyah, it was said about him, that if he spoke about any topic, you would feel as if he is preparing for this lecture his entire life. Until today, from the day that he was born, he was preparing for this lecture, and today he gave that amazing lecture. But you feel like that in every lecture. So Abdullah ibn Mubarak was also that person that when he would speak in matters of religion, they would say, you know what, there's nobody else that can beat that. So now I'll share with you perhaps one of my favorite stories that I was preparing for this and I came across, is that Abdullah ibn Mubarak, every year, he had one big mission in life. One year, he would go for Hajj. The other year, he would go for jihad. And at this time, there are a lot of basically skirmishes and battles going on with the Romans. So one year, his mission is, I'm going to go for Hajj. And one year, he goes for jihad against the Romans. He goes and he spends several months on the border, basically on the front line, protecting the borders of the Muslim land. And battles happen, and he participates in battle. So Ibn al-Muthanna narrates that Abdullah ibn Sinan said, I was with Ibn al-Mubarak and Mu'tamir ibn Sulaiman in Tarsus when the call to arms was made. So Ibn al-Mubarak came out along with people, and when the two ranks faced each other, so basically the battle is about to begin, Muslim soldiers come out, the Roman soldiers come out, two lines are in front of each other, and a Roman warrior comes out. And he challenges, he said, who will come out and fight me? Who will come out and fight me? So a man from the Muslims went to fight him, and this Roman killed him. This Roman overpowered him and killed him. And he said, who will come out and fight me? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 Muslims are killed by this Roman soldier. And now this Roman soldier, he starts to walk in this battlefield with so much pride and arrogance. He's basically saying, you guys have no one that you can put in front of me. You guys are basically, this is what's called psychological warfare.